Alright, Jospehine, it's Mike here from Mikesogacademy. So I happened to cross your swing on the community, so I figured I'd give you a few tips, see if I can help you out. So anyways, let's get into it. So the first couple lines I got drawn here is basically used as a reference point. I draw them over the head to see if the head's moving too far back, too far forward, too far up, too far down. Pretty simple stuff there. This one over here is the ball target line. So the ball target line can be thought of as wherever your club face is aiming at setup, that's the ball target line. Now this one is the original shaft line. I'm sure you've seen this drawn before. Not to be misportrayed that the club shaft should be traveling on that line throughout the whole swing. More so, I like to see the hands tracing along that and the club head slightly above it. Now let's get into this angle right here. It's pretty simple, right? We're just trying to see how much flex you have in the knees, and this one is the spine angle. So let's get into it. So the first one I want to go over is the spine angle. So you're over at 145, Jin's over at 148. Now Jin might be a little bit taller than you, but again, not bad. I like your spine angle right now. I think it's pretty good. Jin's over at 153 with the knee flex. You are as well. Pretty good there. I like that as well. And all in all, I would say just a pretty much textbook setup. Really good. Nothing to worry about there. So let's take you into P2. So for my system, let's go over a few. Let's look at this screen right here, and we're going to go to the Jin. So P2 is hands level to hips. There's left arm parallel, but I like to say P3 is hands level to shoulders, P4 is top of the swing, P5 again is hands level to shoulders, then I have a left arm parallel, P6 is hands level to hips, P7 is impact, P8 is hands level to hips again, P9 hands level to shoulders, and then P10 finish, right? So there's 10 little positions that I look for. You might be aware of these. It looks like you probably had lessons in the past, so I don't think that's too much to go over. So anyways, let's go over, let's get you up to P2. So P2, I see the hands are tracing along that original shaft line. The camera did slightly move here, so I'm aware of that, but I still believe your club head, no matter where that camera moved, was pretty far underneath that original shaft line. So you're going into what I call is a little bit of pronation in the forearms. If you think about pronation, put your right arm in front of you. Now twist your forearm to the right. That's pronation. Now twist it to the left. That's supination. So your forearm, left forearm, is going a little bit too much supination, or excuse me, pronation, and your right wrist is going into what we call extension. So let's go over extension. So put your hand out in front of you. Now I want you to have your palm up to the sky. That's extension of the right wrist. Now I want your back of the hand to go up to the sky. That's flexion of the left wrist. So I would like to see the club shaft a little bit more vertical at this point, or just adding on a little bit more radial, which is radial of the wrist is more upwards hinge. So I mean, there's a lot of terminology here, but simply put, if you could get that club head a little bit more in this fashion at that time, you'd be rock solid. So let's go over to Jin, and you can kind of see what I mean. So as you can see, he has a little bit more radial hinge, or the club head is a little bit more on top of that original shaft line than yours. So now let's get up to the left arm parallel to the ground. We'll get up to Jin's as well. So I would say you're a little bit more laid off in this position. So I would say this shaft of the club is pointing more so outside ball target line, which I see in most of the long hitters in the game, and especially I think the most consistent long hitters. They get this club shaft going a little bit more inside ball target line at this point. Now, the reason why they do that is they found, there's been studies, if you're off playing in the backswing, or i.e. getting that shaft pointing a little bit more inside ball target line like such, that allows you to get a little bit of this motion called shalling, or just, you might think of it a little bit of a loop, which then in turn gets you more speed. So I'm sure you've thrown a softball before, I'm sure you've thrown a tennis ball or something like that. If you do the throwing motion, you get that loop that I'm about to talk about. So we'll go into that just here in a little bit. Let's run you up to the top of the swing, or P4. Run Jin up too. So I like your P4 position. So I like to see the left arm on shoulder line. So yours might be a little bit above it, but not bad. Pretty good there. I also look for this right forearm. I like to see it parallel with the spine angle. So yours is not quite there. So I would fix that. But this left arm is parallel to the ground, or right arm, excuse me, right elbow parallel to the ground. So I like that. So you're in a pretty good structure with the arms. Not bad. Nothing too crazy to change from there. So let's kind of go into downswing. We're going to stop left arm parallel to the ground, or this position right here. And then we're going to stop gin there as well. All right, so if we draw a line right here, we are pretty steep. So now you're pointing inside ball target line. If we look at Jin's, he's pointing a little bit more outside ball target line, and then he's parallel to this original shaft line. You're intersecting, so your geometry is a little bit off. As well, your head's starting to back out at this point. So we got a few things in takeaway and transition that I think are kind of messing up a little bit with our swing. So now let's run you through down into impact. I would say your club head is traveling, your swing direction or club head is traveling to the right. And let's go, yeah, I'm going to do it. All right, so let's get into a little bit of education about ball flight laws and how that can kind of affect things. So there's a few terminology, there's 3 of them to be exact. I'm going to talk about swing direction, angle attack, and path. If you already know about these things, great. If you don't, well, maybe you're going to like this next part of the video. So anyways, swing direction, simply put, is where your club head is traveling at a general point in time. It's not a specific point, it's a general amount of time. Now, club path is a specific point in time. It's where your club is traveling at a very specific point of time. Angle attack, simply put, is how much is that club head hitting down on the golf ball, or what angle are you coming into the ground to hit the golf ball. So the reason why these terms are so important is you got to get them all to match to hit good shots. So let's go into kind of what you're doing, and I'll explain why it's not quite what I normally see out of the best players. So you're coming into the golf ball from the right, and you're also hitting, see how you take a divot? You're also hitting a decent amount down on it. So let's say you're hitting 4 degrees, which is actually tour average. LPGA, I'm not quite sure, but I know the PGA, the tour average with a 7-iron is 4 degrees down on the golf ball. So that's good. But when you match a swing direction that, let's say yours was going about 2 degrees to the right, well, if you have a -4 attack angle and a +2 swing direction, your path is going to be 6 degrees. Now, whenever we start getting a big path number, if our face angle, well, I didn't tell you about this one, but face angle, simply put, is where the face is pointing at impact. So I think that's a pretty easy one to comprehend. But anyways, so whenever your path is a big number, like say +6, and your face is not 2-to-1 ratio, so say +6, your face angle is +3, that would be a functional draw. If you start getting away from that, you're going to start hitting pretty big overdraws, or you're going to get some shots that start way right and hang out there. Especially with the shorter clubs, you might start getting some shots. I'm guessing you get some shots that you think are a pull, but technically aren't quite a pull. I just think it's your swing direction is too far right, and then you're not matching with angle attack. So there's 2 ways around it. You could A, shallow out your angle attack and keep the swing direction where it is, which a lot of LPGA Tour players do that. But not if your swing direction is like +4, but I'm saying more so if your swing direction is like +1, maybe they get their angle attack to like -2, let's say. Because that's one way to go around it. Or you can keep your angle attack, and we got to get you exiting a little bit more lower and left. So those would be kind of the 2 options. Let's look at Jin and see what he does. So as he hits the golf ball, notice how his club shaft is pretty much disappearing behind that original shaft line. Hallmark, again, of the best old-time Mo Norman, Ben Hogan, Byron Nelson, the best top premier ball strikers. They all have that kind of. Now watch as his club head exits its immediately left. And you see how his golf ball starts a little bit right of this line, and then it's going to start drawing back. So that would be him having that -4 attack angle and then exiting lower and left. That's one way to do it. I guarantee he hit a little push draw. Even though it looks like he's trying to hit a fade, he hit a little push draw there. Now for you, if we're going to do that, we're going to have to shallow out the shaft by this position right here, right? When your left arm's parallel at the ground, you're going to have to get this shaft pointing more so outside ball target line, more so kind of like that. Here, let me redraw that line. That was awful. So it's going to have to be a little bit more around this fashion, laying down that shaft just a touch more. I think that would be crucial for you trying to hit some good shots. Now, an easy way to lay down the shaft is going back to that takeaway position. Getting the shaft more vertical at this point makes the player want to lay down more on the downswing, which then in turn gets you more speed because you're creating that little loop, that little throwing action. And let's think about this common sense wise. If your club shaft was more so this way, now watch what your head starts doing. See how it's backing away from that line. Now if you do that while laying down the shaft, you're going to hit the ball pretty bad, right? You might get some shanks. So laying down the shaft is going to allow you to want to stay a little bit more, or watch your head. It's going to make your head want to stay a little bit more on this line, and it's going to make you want to rotate through the shot a little bit more. I think it's going to give you a lot more control, and I think you're going to have a lot more speed because of it, because you're going to be able to rotate through the golf ball pretty hard. You're not going to have a stall out. So I believe it's greatly going to kind of change how far you can hit the golf ball, how consistent you're going to be with your starting line, because it looks like you're a good player. And when you get to become the better players, starting line and basically having a one-way miss is crucial. So I don't think you're quite at that point at this time. And I would be very interested to see if you started shelling out the club and doing kind of the things that I'm talking about. That I know you're going to get rid of that miss, and you're going to get so much more distance. It'd be ridiculous. But anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. If you're interested or you need any more help, I'm going to leave my website. I'm going to leave my Gmail. I do give online lessons. I got a great bunch of deals going on in January. I think it's like a $25 deal for a single online membership, just for a lesson. I got like 50% discounts on memberships, 75% discounts on memberships. I'm really trying to go and just push online right now. So if you're not in the San Diego area, I'd highly recommend doing it. I'm going to send this to you right now. Let me know if you like what you hear, and hopefully it helps out.